Did New World waste the Brimstone Sands hype train? Now, I know some of you might be a little bit confused by that title and why I'm even asking this question, especially as Brimstone Sands is coming out in a couple of days and the hype is pretty high, right? It's probably going to be quite big when it releases, and we've actually seen a big increase in players since it was announced. So what am I actually talking about? Well, let me explain. But first, I want to give a quick shout out to my YouTube members. If you want to support the channel, that truly is the best way to do so. Thank you very much to you guys. So basically, there's a couple of points to discuss, but the main one is I don't think Amazon really utilized the Brimstone Sands hype train as well as they could have done, but I'm actually quite convinced that it was intentional. Now, I might simply just be very, very high on copium, but I believe that Amazon Game Studios, AGS, is playing the long term when it comes to Brimstone hype and hype for New World in general. I also believe that Amazon realized that Brimstone Sands update is perhaps not the biggest update that one might expect. It's not really a game changer in that sense, but a lot of people, YouTubers, myself included probably, we give the perception that Brimstone Sands is this sort of massive thing that's going to revolutionize the game, and I actually don't think it is. Sure, I do think that Brimstone looks great. Having tried it on the PTR, I'm very excited for it. It looks amazing. A lot of what we see is really good in there, but then again, I am a current New World player. I never stopped playing, but I think that some people's expectations of what the Brimstone Sands update is going to offer is probably a little bit out of whack with the actual reality of the update. I believe that there's some very real and very obvious confusion about what constitutes an expansion. Is Brimstone Sands an expansion or not? I personally say that Brimstone Sands is not an expansion. I mean, technically it is accurately called a map expansion because the world is literally getting bigger, but for me it's actually just a big patch. It's not an expansion in the traditional sense that we would see or talk about when we talk about MMOs. Dragonflight, the upcoming expansion for World of Warcraft, is a proper expansion. Endwalker was a proper expansion for Final Fantasy. There's more examples, I just can't think of any off the top of my head. To me, Brimstone Sands is much more like a major patch that maybe something like World of Warcraft would have. So, you know, maybe they have 3 or 4 major patches before an expansion comes out. Brimstone Sands feels like one of those rather than the major expansion. And I think that's true because when you look at it content-wise of what we get in the Brimstone Sands update, sure, we're getting the 1 to 25 rework, but for existing players that's not really that relevant. Beyond that, what do we get? We get a new zone, a new expedition, a new ability for everybody, and a new weapon. Now there's obviously more than that, but they're sort of like the key box features if you were going to put them on a box. And really, we've had new weapons and expeditions before. That's not really any kind of new stuff, if that makes sense. It's new, but obviously we've had it before. I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say there. So if we look at the stuff that's new and different, the stuff that's really new, then what we are going to get is a new zone and the new abilities and some new gems actually. If you release that as a proper expansion, I personally would be slightly underwhelmed. But as a free content patch, then I think it's absolutely great. It's very, very good. But my main point is this. I think even Amazon Game Studios know that this is not a necessarily like massive game changer. And I think that they were uncertain as to what the perception of the game is or would be by the time Brimstone Sands came out. Only now do I actually think they realise that the sentiment of the game has changed in a lot of positive ways. I think their plan after a couple of months of launch was to simply knuckle down and make New World good again, to basically fix things and make the players happy. Now I think that Amazon have achieved that. I think the game now is in a decent-ish state, but I don't think AGS really wanted to shout this from the rooftops at the loudest possible volume. Sure, I think they have shouted a little bit about Brimstone, but I don't think it's the max PR push that we really could see. They're not shouting as loud as they really could if they tried. Brimstone comes out in just a couple of days, and at the moment, the marketing is quite minimal. Not quite non-existent, but minimal. I was really very pleased to see them actually give us a release date for Brimstone. I felt like that was a really positive change. That's just good in my opinion. But they've not really done a marketing push. And I have to personally confess, I pretty much was sure that they were going to do a big marketing push for this Brimstone update, this 1-year anniversary update. Now, of course, there's still time for them to shock me, but it is looking like they're going to let Brimstone Sands be like a word of mouth kind of hype train rather than one that they are specifically like paying to promote. They'll probably have some big streamers play it on launch, but maybe those big streamers would have played it anyway because they're genuinely interested in it. But I suspect through Twitch you'll see sort of like sponsored streams. I think that's inevitable, right? But personally, I don't think we've seen a big PR blitz, and I don't think we're going to see one. I don't necessarily think we'll see one for Fresh, but maybe if they're happy with the way that Brimstone is received, maybe you'll see a very quick put together like hype train just to get some players to play the game. But I personally don't think they're going to super push it at this point. Now, I said there that I think one reason they're doing this is because of a lack of confidence in the game and the sentiment of the game. But they have made lots of positive changes in the last year. But it was only relatively recently, I think maybe at the end of July, where it really felt like people's views on the game were changing. Things started to feel a little bit differently then, and that's when numbers started to go up in terms of players. But I think there's actually a more obvious reason why they're not doing a big marketing push right now for the Brimstone Sands update, and that is simply money. Sure, they do actually make money from people playing the game who then buy skins and transfers and stuff like that, but just having thousands of players who who weren't playing the game play the game doesn't necessarily directly give them the money. It's a buy to play game, so if you already have bought the game is effectively free to you. The only way they would actually make money in like very real terms is if they got a lot of players to buy the game that didn't already. We know that the game sold very, very well at launch. How many people are out there who haven't bought it, who are vaguely interested? I think that's a small number. I think actually it's a lot of people who are thinking about coming back to the game, giving it a second chance. But I think their main concern was to actually make the game good. They wanted the perception to change from being pure toxic and negative to being like one of appreciation and positivity. And that method seems to be working right now. Everybody's starting to feel a little bit better about it. Not everybody, but a lot of people are starting to feel a little bit better. And then when everybody's happy, I think boom, then we will see an expansion, and a paid expansion at that. Now, people moan at me even suggesting this, like I'm the one coming up with the idea. I'm not. They basically said when they were talking about New World before it came out that they were going to follow sort of like a Guild Wars 2 sort of sales model. That's a buy-to-play game with paid expansions with a cash shop. And weirdly, I suspect once we get the paid expansion, we'll probably get like a free trial, maybe even make 1 to 60 free. Like that could happen. Now, I personally believe that we'll actually hear about the expansion late this year. I think we're going to hear about it in December at the Game Awards. I might be wrong though, maybe they'll actually want to hold off, because if you announce your expansion like a year before it comes out, does that then stop people playing your game now? Potentially. But either way, I don't think a paid expansion would launch before the very end of 2023 at the earliest. Now, of course, we are going to get a new roadmap. I suspect what we're going to see there is what they told us we're going to see: less patches but bigger content in those patches. It might be that we're only going to see maybe 4 major patches next year, and in theory, if they're like absolutely stacked, that's going to be completely fine. But with the expansion, if it is going to come out late 2023, then when they want people to actually spend $30+ or whatever the hell it will be, then I think you'll start seeing some hype trains and some marketing pushes. And they'll have that behind them that they can say, hey, yeah, we had a bit of a rough launch, we appreciate that, but people were obviously excited about the game, and we've now listened to the players and we've made the relevant changes. Please give us that second chance. That's a bit easier to ask for that second chance when you've not already asked for the second chance. If you did a big marketing push now with Brimstone, then you'll be like, well, we need to sort of ask you again, and it would probably feel a little bit awkward. So that's why I think it's actually a conscious choice to not ask players basically for that second chance just yet. Now, I'm not saying we're going to see no marketing with Brimstone and Fresh. I think we will obviously see a little bit. Like I said, we'll maybe see like Twitch streamers and stuff like that. And they obviously want the right people to play now. If you stopped maybe because one of the things that they've changed, maybe you stopped because you had to pay to go into expeditions, well, there's no harm in you coming back to the game and them getting you to come back to the game. But I just think in the main, they're actually playing the long game. So in a way, I don't think they capitalized on the hype of Brimstone Sands, because if you look at like content creators who've come back to New World and we're all making New World content, that's obviously gone up. Play numbers have gone up. Like, there's obviously excitement around New World right now. It's dying off a little bit now as Brimstone actually approaches. Early September, I think, was like peak. Now the hype sort of faded a little bit, but that's, that's okay. I think once it actually comes out, we'll see another big hype, right? But how did we get that hype in the first place for Brimstone? Well, what did AGS do? They did 2 dev updates. One of them was like a slightly underwhelming 1-year anniversary. They've also posted some stuff on their website, but they didn't like take out massive TV advert spots or anything like that. They did a few little things when they actually announced Brimstone. We had Danny and Baggins going down to like London or wherever it was to go and get a sneak peek of it. That was all cool, I actually think that was pretty good. They also did some like web-based interviews with like journalists and gaming sites and stuff like that. But it wasn't a massive PR blitz. I don't think anybody would call it that. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe you disagree with me. But as I said, I think it's intentional. Because otherwise, to my eyes, it's actually sort of like incompetence or an intentional calculated plan. And even though I may be completely high on copium, I do believe it's actually a calculated plan. It's maybe not a plan, but it's more of a calculated decision. So the question was, did New World capitalize on the Brimstone hype? Well, the answer is no, but I think that was planned all along. I think AGS are not wasting a hype train until they really want a hype train and they want to get some dollars from your hands. Then you'll start seeing some real hype. Another big shout out to my YouTube members. As I said at the start, this is the best way to support the channel. It really does help. So if you want to help the channel and you want to see me make more and more content, that's the best way to go about things, right? Other than that, what you should definitely do is have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye. Goodbye.